Good afternoon on what is a very warm, bright and sunny day. It is Sunday the 8th of October. I've got a nice hot cup of tea. And I have something else interesting to unbox, which is this. This is Dungeons & Dragons Adventure, issue number 2. Now you can see issue number 1 up there. And perhaps the most notable thing about issue 1, of course, is the dice and the price. And with this issue, yes, you do get dice. You get these nice yellow dice. So with a couple of issues, you've got plenty of dice to share around the table, but you also get an increase in price, and the price is going to go up. Price is going to double essentially for the next issues. Start playing today, Dungeons & Dragons Adventure, fire up your imagination and learn to play the world's most popular tabletop role-playing game with Dungeons & Dragons Adventure. This brand new collection will teach you how to become a D&D expert with an exclusive adventure, easy step-by-step instructions, and all the information you need to role-play compelling fantasy characters. Excuse me. Collect specially designed dice, maps, miniatures, and more given throughout the collection, and join us on a wild ride through the D&D journey of a lifetime. So what you get in here is sage advice, advice on character creation, lore, and an exclusive adventure. And don't say you've got a bit of advertising, of course. Don't miss issue 3 with 4 exclusive miniatures. Now I've seen issue 3. Now the miniatures are flat acrylics. They're attractive, but they're not miniatures in the traditional sense. And then of course you have enhance your game with dice, maps, and more. For example, like the tin you've got in issue 1. Essentially, this is essentially the second part of a partwork, which builds to a complete Dungeons & Dragons collection. Over about 80 parts, it will take you somewhere in the region of, best part of a year or more to collect. And it is one of the choices you've got to make with it is just how much you are willing to spend on it, because at £8-9 an issue, it is expensive. But let's find out what is in this particular issue. So I'm going to get the knife. Let's cut it open. There we go. That's now open. I can pull this out. So you get a bundle of things in here, not quite as many as in the first issue. So you do get these polyhedral dice. They're quite nice. You know, they're going to look. You can see with the black and red dice you've got from the first issue is going to nicely contrast with those, and it gives you an interesting setup, essentially, that later in, if you subscribe, you've got 2 dice sets as the owner, and then later on as a subscriber, you will be sent a wooden dice jail. So if your dice roll badly, you can put them in jail. So now you've got a choice of dice to choose from if you put some of them in that wooden dice jail. So what you also have is the magazine itself and this map. I'm going to fold out the map now. I can see the map is one that we've seen before. It is large, colourful, and it shows, and it's done on really heavy stock paper, rather, almost like card. It's of Forgotten Realms and the Sword Coast. So you've got Neverwinter Woods, you've got the City of Neverwinter, and a lot of this will be familiar from the last 10 years of releases for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and with the locations being used for recent content. So again, this ties into Vandalin and the release of Pandelver and Beyond, the as to say, the most recent campaign released for the role-playing game. Then we have the booklet itself. Now, this is oddly bound for a good reason, and it's the reasons are these holes there and there, which are meant to go and fit into a binding, because these pages all separate. They are just simply glued together, and you're meant to put them into the binder, which you can also get as part of the collection. So we open up and we have contents page and a discussion of how advantage and disadvantage works, an inspiration, which, when it was introduced in 2014 with the release of the Dungeons & Dragons starter set, Minds of Pandelver, and also the Player's Handbook, was indeed inspirational. The proliferation of an advantage and disadvantage mechanic, where if you have advantage, you roll with 2 dice, choose the best result. Disadvantage, roll 2 dice, choose the worst, has proliferated throughout role-playing design, and then having role-playing tags in there related to your background and so on as a character, and when they come into play, being given inspiration, i.e. a die you can use to gain advantage on future rolls, was a genuine role-playing mechanic, and the very first genuine role-playing mechanic in Dungeons & Dragons. So we move on to discussion of inspiration, and here we have more detail. Bardic inspiration, your player character bards can give out inspiration through play, and then of course the rule of cool, doing things that are cool in game, which will earn you inspiration from from the dungeon master, rewarding you for good play. This next section is resting and hit dice, so explaining what to do between combats when you've taken damage, and recovering hit points. Short rest, long rest, of course. So a fuller explanation. We've got a separate little booklet, which I'll look at in a minute. And then spellcasting explained. How does that work? And in some ways, this is kind of foundational. Of course, it's foundational, but essentially it's foundational that really you kind of wanted that information in the first issue, because some of the characters would be spellcasting. So discussion of spell slots, spell level, use of spells, the anatomy of a spell, and so on. And then elements like concentration, and what's required, to maintain spells, how to prepare the spells, and then a discussion of the different various races or species to be found in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So we have humans, including famous humans, and then move on to the next class, which is rogue. So you can see this. So you do have things like, okay, so far you have advantages and disadvantages, so essentially mechanics, resting and hit dice, spellcasting explained, and concentration. So they're all essentially core rule elements. And here we move on to sort of like a bit of more, sort of like essentially more background with the humans, and then the rogue. And so, but they're sort of kind of separate to what you would normally include alongside those. So alongside the humans, you would have discussions of halflings and elves and dwarves, and so on. And then the rogue, you would have a discussion of the wizard, the fighter, and the cleric. And these are not present in this issue. And what's that reinforcing is that you have, it's the nature of the part work. There are parts of this that you, will break apart and put together, so that when you come to having this in your collection, in your binders, you will have a section on the rogue alongside the section on the other classes. And presumably there will be dividers to help you find that. So we have an overview of the rogue, and then rogue features, a discussion of what the rogue can do, such as the sneak attack and damage. And that doesn't cover everything that the rogue can do, it's just part of it. And then general actual background of the Forgotten Realms, including discussion there of the continent of Faerun, and then essentially other continents of the realm as well, and treating them, discussing them as lands of adventure. And then we have an encounter, which is the Forgotten Vault. And again, you have the DM tips, the Dungeon Master's advice there, and then up there, you know, more one for the players. So the players saying, you know, this is for the game Dungeon Master's eyes only. The DM top tip. The DM usually relates encounters through the mixture of first person when relating role-playing NPCs, second person, talking about you know what the player characters see and so on, and third person, such as when describing a location. And so it says here, players can use the pre-generated character sheets that came with issue 1 of D&D Adventurer, or they can create their own D&D Beyond. So, and each of these encounters is about playing a time of 1 to 2 hours. And with issue one, essentially, you would probably take about 3 to 4 hours by the time you'd gone through explaining to your players, you know, if they were new to the game, what the game involved, how it was played, and then you play through the session. With this, the player characters are more ready, you know, the players are more ready to get involved. It's their second adventure, and if and of course, if they're actual experienced players, they'll just pick this up and go. You know, they'll just leap into it. So we have a beginning encounter, and again, it's in the small mining town of Phandalin, tying it into the events of and setting in and around the campaign of Pandelver and beyond. So here we go. We have a Forgotten Vault to explore. Key location, description, a couple of monsters, so including an animated armor, and the infamous mimic there, you know, essentially. So the advice of top tip is new players will probably assume that the statue, torch, armor, and chandelier in the fourth treasure room are simply normal objects. If a player touches one of these objects, the Dungeon Master can really ramp up the surprise as the object reveals itself to be a shape-shifting juvenile mimic that attacks the players. So yeah, this is not an actual mimic, it's a juvenile mimic, it's a mini mimic, if you will. And then of course you've got a player handout on the back. So, and then of course you do have this included. This is the subscription flyer for future issues. So already, you know, it's saying here, those are the acrylic miniatures you get with issue 3. Issue 4, of course, that will get you a special die and a bag for your dice, and then a dice tray, and so on, all with you know, basically describing. And then there are the dividers, binder and dividers for your game. There's that infamous dice gel which I mentioned earlier. Dungeon Master screen again, all available to subscribers, and you've got the details of how to subscribe there. And then on the back you have, you know, basically more about, you know, binders for your collection, and enhance your game with dice, maps, and more if you subscribe. So, I mean, of course, you know, the Hachette will be wanting you to subscribe, and that's understandable. You know, they want customers, they want to put more of this content out and make it generally available. So, just put this back in its place. So overall, I think a reasonable continuing introduction to Dungeons and Dragons. The map is fairly nice, nice and sturdy. You know, if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, you'll appreciate having a really good copy of the map like that. If you're playing the adventures in Pandelver and beyond, then you know it's useful for that. And the content in here, certainly the adventure, can be dropped into a Pandelver set campaign. So that is Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer issue number 2. Hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings of the Nook, where you would typically see me with a box containing a book or game which I'll unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing of the Nook. We'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.